Hey you, and welcome. My name is Mike, and in this old video, what I have for you today is, it's a tale as old as time itself. Woman meets man, they fall in love, you got the smiles, you got the birds chirping, you know, all that kind of love. So it's great. I mean, this story, if you boil it down, it's essentially that. If I were to skip, like, a lot. Because woman met man by being his attorney, his lawyer, for cases against his ex-girlfriend. His ex-girlfriend, she had good reason. So not only was woman defending man in court, but they are also in cahoots, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah, I think you do. She went from lawyer to lover to accomplice. Wacky stuff. You know, it would make for bad TV if it wasn't so real. And it got very real. And it's a story that's still ongoing, so there's still, you know, a lot of unknowns, but there is also a lot we do know. So, before we get into it, please subscribe to see a new crime video every week. Now let's get into it, because there's a lot to get into, and give it a go. This story takes us to Oklahoma, in fact to a county we did visit before. If you remember the story of Kevin Sweat, Big Sweaty, it takes us to Okmulgee County. So previously we ventured to the towns of Okmulgee, Morris, and Henrietta, but now, begs to differ, we are going to Beggs. You better believe it. Yeah, it's a town, well, okay. It's a city. Again, I'm bringing this. We really need to, like, narrow down what we're calling cities these days, because New York it is not. About 1,300 people live there today, and it's a family kind of place. It's safe, it's got the schools, it's cheap enough for land and property, and plenty of room to run around. I mean, when you look on Google Maps, you've seen this place before. It has the look most small towns have. But they do not have the same events. See, just east of the city of Beggs is US Route 75. And on the other side of that is an address at Lakeview Circle. There lies this medium-sized house surrounded by woods. And it was that house that on the 7th of September 2019, a person was walking up to it. As they were walking, they saw a baseball cap lying just outside the house, oddly enough. And as they got closer, they knocked to no answer, but they knew something was wrong. Mainly because the door they had knocked on had been kicked in. So yeah, they were right. Something was wrong. And they called the police.
It's still an active scene right now. I'm here about a mile away from the home where 3 people were found dead. Police are still behind me, blocking the road. And
inside that house lay the bodies of Jack Chandler, 65 years of age, his wife Evelyn Chandler, 69 years of age, and their daughter, Tiffany Eicher, 43 years of age. All 3 had been shot to death by a high-powered rifle, and probably another firearm also, likely a handgun. Now, this wasn't the first time the police had in fact visited this very house. Not the Chandlers, and in particular Tiffany Eicher, were known to the local police, but not because, you know, they weren't up to no good or anything. Not at all. In fact, it seemed like people were up to no good, like against them. See, back in January of 2019, so we're talking, you know, 8 months before, you know, they had a triple murder in that house. Police were called to that house in rural Oklahoma. They were called because the Chandlers and Tiffany, they spotted like a suspicious item underneath the porch. It was like a white powder. It was like coke or meth or something like that. So the police came out, they nabbed it, they took it back to the station, they did some tests to find out what exactly had been planted under their house that was like, what? Well, it turned out that it was powdered sugar. But it was very much made to look like drugs. So who would plant fake drugs, you know, underneath their house? Was it a prank? Or something, you know, like that? But if a few months later they were murdered, Police felt that someone had been trying to scare them, maybe intimidate them, specifically Tiffany, into shutting up, maybe trying to discredit them by planting drugs. Obviously, they were just fake, though. So someone had been trying to shut them up, but what were they talking about? Something that resulted in their brutal murders. So who would have it in for them? Well, Barry Titus worked in construction, as far as I've been able to tell. This story really involved me doing a lot of digging. There's a good bit of reporting out there, but nothing too extensive. It's kind of like a lot of reporting of the same thing. But I believe he was a crane operator. A native Oklahoman, he grew up just outside Oklahoma City, and then he attended Everglades University, studying environmental health and safety before moving back and working for various companies as a heavy lift operator and consultant. And not only that, he also opened his own car repair body shop, name of Skyline, operating out of Oklahoma City. Well, sure. Look at you.
Hi, my name's Barry Titus with Skyline Dent and Hail Repair, and remember that Skyline with 2 Y's. Being an Oklahoman myself, I really noticed a need for a shop that did not sacrifice quality for price, and we've actually opened 3 convenient locations right here in Oklahoma City. Remember, you're the only one that can make your dents our problem.
Tiffany Eicher, she met Barry Titus on Tinder in August of 2017, so just over 2 years before she was killed. Literally, within 1 month of dating, he began these kind of shenanigans with Tiffany of beating 7 shades of shite out of her regularly. He would kick her, he would hit her, he would strangle her. He said he was testing her. If you really love me, you won't mind the fist. Yikes. He also started getting Tiffany involved in meth and old H-dog. And things got better. No, they didn't. 3 months into the relationship, he put Tiffany in hospital with cracked ribs, a lacerated liver, a lacerated kidney, and bruises just all over. And the police would come to her and be like, here, listen, he's beating the shit out of you. Every time she'd be like, no, I don't want to press charges against him. He would beat her and strangle her until she was unconscious. He would pour water over her. She would wake up and he would go again. And the cycle continued. The police were called multiple times, one time by a witness who saw Barry pistol whip Tiffany. He called the cops. They came, she was like, no, I'm grand, no, it's fine. Finally, in May of 2018, she cut him off, right? Tiffany had been going to therapy, and that kind of gave her the push she needed to get rid of this deadbeat, and she cut him off entirely. And then she also decided to follow up and press charges against him for what he'd been putting her through. In October of 2018, so a couple of months after they broke up, Barry Titus was arrested and charged with assault. And so, up shit creek, Barry arrested, he needed a lawyer. And so he went into his home, Oklahoma City, wandered around, and he found one. He went to a law office that operated out of Oklahoma City. Harroz Law, ran by one Keegan Harroz. And, let me tell you, as soon as they locked eyes and he told her he was up for assault for cruelly and viciously beating the living shit out of his girlfriend for many, many months, well, Keegan, upon hearing that, she was head over heels. She was like, you're a horribly abusive drug addict, you're my dream guy! She thought to herself, what a catch, and she didn't want to let go. Keegan herself was from Rolette, Texas. She actually had a circuitous route to the business of da law. She first studied electrical engineering out of Southern Methodist University, then marketing at Texas Tech, and then she finally went to Oklahoma City University School of Law. She went from law clerk to intern to assistant public defender to owner of Harroz Law, doors opening March 2014, specializing in criminal, family, and personal injury law. And now, Keegan was in love, finally she found the right one after meeting Barry Titus in October 2018. Of course, they had to keep their relationship a secret. The American Bar Association makes it very clear. A lawyer shall not have sexual relations with a client unless a consensual sexual relationship existed between them when the client-lawyer relationship commenced. And I don't believe there's any evidence they knew each other before he was looking for an attorney to defend himself against Tiffany Eicher's accusations. So I mean, his history of what he was doing, he really must be quite the charmer if she would throw away her entire, career she had built for this loser. And months later, in June of 2019, Tiffany Eicher actually filed a protective order against Barry Titus. So now for the initial assault cases, for the protective order, and actually for unrelated assault cases, Keegan Harroz was his defender all round. She would be with Barry through thick and thin. She had real love hearts for eyes. They even married at one point, and maybe, just maybe, she would do anything for him. She already was. She had hired a private investigator to tail and follow around Tiffany Eicher around everywhere. So that's that. 3 months after Tiffany Eicher filed a protective order against Barry Titus, her and her parents end up brutally murdered, and the investigation began.
We first told you Saturday when deputies were called to a home just north of Beggs and found 3 people shot and killed.
This family really just kept to themselves. However, they say that these were good people, and this whole situation is just very disheartening.
They were real quiet. They were friendly. When people drive by, they'd wave at you. He kept the cleanest yard in the neighborhood.
Deputies identified 65-year-old Jack Chandler, his 69-year-old wife, Evelyn, and their daughter, 43-year-old Tiffany Eicher, all victims in a triple homicide.
So when the police were at the scene of the crime in rural Beggs, they noticed the power had been cut to the home. But the Chandlers did have CCTV. So the police were able to view the CCTV footage until the power was cut, and what they saw was that at roughly 3 a.m. a light-colored sedan came up, parked outside the house, and 2 people got out of that car. One a good bit taller than the other. They walked towards the house, and then they cut the power and the phone line. Then they kicked in the door to the house, and it's believed, when they got inside, they just started opening up. First was Jack Chandler. He was killed. Evelyn Chandler, she was killed. She was hiding in a closet. She was found and killed. Tiffany Eicher, though, she had the worst. There was a lot of evidence of she had been tortured a lot before being killed. Tiffany Eicher was likely, she got the worst of it. She was the likely target. Her parents were simply, witnesses, and they were there. Then these 2 killers, they hauled ass out of there. As the investigation into who did this, continued, they looked upon, previous reports to the house. And remember that, 8 months before this, there had been a report of, them finding white powder, somebody trying to plant fake drugs outside their house. So as you can imagine, that came up again now that they had a triple homicide investigation. And this time, a person came forward to the police and said, yep, I'm the one who planted that there. His name was Jose Uribe. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. He came forward to the police, admitting that he had planted it because he was involved in a drug trafficking case, and he was like, well, hey, listen, if I help you out on this one, maybe you can, do me a solid later down the line. So he came forward and he said, yes, I planted those fake drugs outside the Chandler's house, and I was told to do it by my attorney. His attorney was Keegan Harroz. He said, yep, Keegan told him to plant drugs under their porch, and then for him to call the drug task force and tell them that drug dealers were operating out of the Chandler Eicher home. It was in fact 6 days after the murders that Keegan Harroz was arrested at the Oklahoma County Courthouse for witness intimidation relating to the drugs planting.
Harroz in jail on a $1 million bond. The DA charged her under seal for intimidating a state witness.
It's alleged to have happened in January of 2019, so 8 months ago, and she's been a member of the Bar Association, appearing in courts all across Oklahoma with not any flight risk or anything. There's something else at play here for it to be $1 million.
The sheriff's office keeps telling us Harroz was not arrested in connection with the triple homicide. As we've reported, Harroz's client, who's also her boyfriend, is charged with domestic abuse against Tiffany Eichor, the daughter killed in Beggs.
That very same day, Keegan Harroz's brother, who lived in Texas, he contacted the police and he said, yeah, I heard you guys have a triple homicide up there, and I believe I have the murder weapon. It was an AR-15 and it belonged to Barry and Keegan. Now, he wouldn't say, you know, how he knew it was the murder weapon or how he got it from them or whatever, but he was like, yeah, I think this is the weapon that was used to kill them. And when the police, they got the gun, they did tests on it. Yeah, it was confirmed. They matched the shell casings found at the scene of the crime. Next up was that CCTV that, you know, showed the two killers walking up to the house. So in the CCTV, clearly see a car park outside the Chandler home, and well, didn't it just so happen to look exactly like Keegan Harroz's 2010 light-colored Lexus sedan? And near where the car had parked, they found a baseball cap lying on the floor. They took that in as it was evidence. They did a DNA swab on the baseball cap, and guess who it matched? Barry Titus. They also found a footprint at the scene, and during a search of Keegan and Barry's home, they found what they thought was a matching female boot.
Were found shot to death at the Chandler's home in Beggs on September 7th. The Okmulgee County Sheriff's Office says evidence shows two people cut electric and phone service to this home while the family was sleeping, then kicked in the front door and killed the family.
$10,000 was offered for information leading to an arrest and conviction in this case. But the police, they had a pretty good idea from Jump Street. But of course, when questioned, you know, Barry and Keegan said, no, not at all. You know, we were actually in Texas from the 6th to the 10th of September, and the murders were on the 7th. Sure they were.
We have filed charges today against Barry Roland Titus II and Keegan Kelly Harroz for the murders of Jack Chandler, Kay Chandler, and Tiffany Eichor.
This comes a little more than a year and a half after the crime was committed.
They will both be charged with 3 counts of premeditated murder and 1 count of burglary in the first degree.
It was in April 2021 that both Barry and Keegan were formally charged with murder. That's 3 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of first-degree burglary. They both pleaded not guilty.
From lawyer to felon, tonight Oklahoma is now seeking the death penalty against a criminal defense attorney who fell in love with her client.
It was then in April 2022 that prosecutors announced they would seek the death penalty for both Barry and Keegan in this case. This is due to, they say, aggravating factors. The physical torture of Tiffany, and they say the mental torture of Evelyn. And the fact that Barry had a long history of committing crimes and would likely commit future crimes. So, Tiffany and Barry date. Barry sucks ass. Barry has to get a lawyer. He sucks so much ass. He gets lawyer Keegan. Keegan and Barry fall in love. They then launch a campaign of hate against Tiffany Eichor, and Tiffany Eichor ends up dead, along with her parents. All so that Barry can avoid prosecution. You know, I think one thing you can take from this is that Keegan must be an absolutely terrible lawyer. She obviously had no faith in her own abilities as an attorney to defend Barry from Tiffany's accusations. If this gets to court, you're screwed because I'm a shit lawyer. Let's just kill them and finish it. That's the story to date, at least. Wow. No word on a trial date, but I'm sure it'll be a biggin. Crazy for Keegan. I mean, you know, no trial yet, so big if true, but she had her this whole life as a lawyer in the city and doing all that, and she just threw it away for this deadbeat asshole? What is the story with their relationship? Though seeing the love they have for each other, it just makes me realize how empty and hollow my own life is. Oh well. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate doing so and being here with Misha. Yeah, that's it. Hope you enjoyed it. I guess that kind of wraps it up. Here, listen, go on. I'll see you as always real soon in the next old video. But until then, please take care of each other. because I love you. Mike out.